Well, there was loads of bits I added to it that he's taken back out now.
Oh, yeah.
But I know his trainers are still training it if they want it. It's just pathetic. It's a
We've got
cash
the
cow thing.
brews
It's like whole way
and
to go.
stuff. Shall we look at
When I teach steps, I teach them how to do everything else.
let's start.
Whereas he's formulating stuff
Stop.
to go.
Why do you have to start
And the
again?
worst one, old troubles to go for anxiety. He's got trainers in Ireland. And he wants us to teach old troubles to go. Ireland.
That'd be good to think about that.
That is not going to kick off.
Right, welcome back.
Yeah.
Obviously this next section is part 2. We're appropriately named. Paul's part 1. Well, 20 past 11. By about just before what? About 1 o'clock we'll be breaking for lunch. There's a pub round the corner where I'll be going to, and I mean it is literally just, if anyone wants to join me, you're more than welcome. Literally it is just round the corner. Otherwise if you're up the side there, you're literally Chesterfield shops are there. Whatever you may so desire to find or get.
There's McDonald's, there's Greg's.
But if you want to pick my brain, I'll be going to the pub around the corner for the hour at lunchtime, and then obviously this afternoon we'll crack on. But hopefully it's starting to make sense. Things are not always what they appear to be. And very few books on the subject go into it from that angle. I think that's mainly because they've gone down the angle of going on a course with someone who was brainwashed into a certain belief system. So if they write anything, they write it in a certain way. Same with therapy courses. They go on a course, and then they teach what they taught, as opposed to actually kind of either coming up with their own way of doing things, or, as I did, coming from an angle where I was of the mind, what's the trick? Because I grew up on a circus, I was performing from the age of 3 and a bit as a circus clown. Look on my website, the embarrassing photos are there. Then when I got older I got into doing magic and stuff. And magic, the key is to do something but make it look like you've done something else, or to do something and make it look like you haven't done something. But ultimately it's very rare that you're actually doing what you appear to be doing. Which is exactly the same with rapid inductions, whether it's for stage or therapy. Very rarely is it as simple as it just appears to be. There's other things going on as a rule. I don't know, just take a card if you want to. Okay, that one, that's brilliant. Take it out, show everyone. Yeah, you've done that?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, excellent. I'm going to turn around so don't let me see it. Say stop when you get the urge. Ideally before I finish. Just say stop. Place your card there. Right next to the 5 of spades. That's the easy way because I know where it is. So what we'll do is we'll make it a bit harder. Place your card into that half. Give the cards a shuffle. And what I'm going to attempt to do is turn around one card only in the deck, roughly about the middle. And hopefully not only will it just any card, although that'd be impressive doing it one-handed behind my back, but hopefully it's actually going to be your card. And if it is, everyone will go mad with applause. If for some reason it isn't, then, and that's if I don't drop them, because I think I'm about to. If it isn't, this trick will be a load of bollocks, okay? So please, for the first time, could you tell me what your card was?
King of Diamonds.
The King of Diamonds. Prepare to be amazed as the one card, forget that one. That's the extra joker card. Nothing to do with it, shouldn't have been in there. One card, face up, one card only. One card. Not only did I find your card, but I changed it into an entirely different one. No. And some fell on stony ground. Well, never mind. I did say that if that went wrong, it'd be a load of bollocks. The reason for that is that if I just go down there like that and reach inside, you find that there is actually one card and one card only. What was your card?
King of Diamonds.
The King of Diamonds.
Hey.
Now, I'm not going to waste time explaining how that was done. If you want to know, I'll tell you at lunchtime. The point is, quite clearly, there was stuff going on that you don't see as an audience or don't know about. So it is with rapid inductions, suggestibility test, set pieces if you come from the strict hypnosis crowd mentality where they for some reason call them set pieces. there's more stuff going on. So what I'm going to do is you can all stay sat where you are, but for the maximum benefit from this, so you'll fully understand it when I come to explain what's going on, it's perhaps best for you to actually participate, so that you kind of get a degree of experience of it. So if I do them in the order that's written down, then that way, when we come to explain them, it'll be in the right order. Okay, I'm talking to everyone. Put down your drinks, your handbags, your purses, anything else you might have in your hands at this time of the day. Excellent. And if the women could do the same, that would be a great start. It's called humour, that, by the way. Place your hands out in front of you like this, okay? And then take your left hand interlock key to the back of the right hand. Fingers of the right hand against the back of the left hand. Palms pressed tightly together, thumbs down on top. And then just extend your 2 forefingers. They're the ones at the top. And separate them about an inch. If that's an inch, girls, I've got no fucking worries, I can tell you. But anyway, and then just stare directly at me. I'm going to count backwards from 3 to 1. On the count of 1, if you concentrate, as I'm sure you will, and you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, then you'll find it's almost as if the world's strongest magnets are on the tips of your fingers, and with each second that passes by, your fingers start to come closer and closer together more rapidly with every breath that you take, every noise that you hear, every word that I say, and every thought that you think is on the count of 2. It's almost as though someone's taken a piece of rope, and they're tying that rope around your fingers into a knot, and they're pulling that knot closer and tighter together, bringing your fingertips more rapidly together. The more you use your powers of mind effectively, the more rapidly they come together. That's brilliant. Some of you are already touching. For the others, the quicker you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, the more rapidly you find that your fingers touch together. As on the count of 1, you find that indeed pretty much everybody except for this awkward so-and-so there is clearly purposely holding them apart. But generally speaking, if you look, they're either closer than they were or your fingertips are touching. Now, alright, you can put your hands down now. I would carry on talking to you if it was one-to-one until you got so bored and fed up that you would stop paying attention to your fingers, and sooner or later they'd end up touching. Obviously in a group you can't do that because it's a numbers game. You could be stood there all bloody night if you've got like hundreds of people, but neither is it necessary. If you're doing a stage hypnosis or a group session, you don't want to be using something like this as a demonstration, and you've already set it up by saying, prove to yourself you've done it right. You've already said the intelligence, it's getting a bit warmer in it, intelligence, imagination and concentration bit. And for the vast majority of people, ultimately, if you talk to them long enough, it'll happen for everybody. If you're doing it one-to-one, you just carry on talking. If you're doing it one-to-one, and the reason being, when your hands are in that position, and you separate your fingers, the tendons here on the back of the hand, after a while, naturally start to tire, and the result is that it naturally will pull your fingers together. Now you can consciously go, no, I'm not letting it happen, I'm not letting it happen. That's why you get them to look at you, so they're not focused on the fingers. So that if you've got your fingers there and you do this, or you're talking about their fingers coming together, this is a non-verbal suggestion, so they see it and they're likely to follow suit. The rest of it is just saying things that sound like what people would expect a hypnotist to say, creating mental images. The truth is, the only real importance of it is to kill time, to give it long enough for that person's fingers to tire and end up touching. And if it was one-to-one, I'd have just carried on talking for another minute or something. I don't know, on 3 I'd have gone, right, I could see your fingers weren't going to, on 2 I'd have probably talked for a minute, until I saw them getting closer together, then I'd have gone 1. But obviously in a group you can't do that. But it doesn't matter, because this isn't the point where you would do the therapy. It isn't the point yet where you would be doing the routines or anything. This is just framed as being an exercise to see who's using their powers of mind most effectively. So again, you can never fail. And obviously the more people you've got, the more of a percentage of people are going to be ones that you say, if your fingertips are touching, put your hands in the air, have a look around, look. And by looking, getting them to look around and they see other people with their fingertips touching, it's reassurance to them that they've done it right. But the people who don't end up with the fingertips together looking around see that it did work for a lot of people, and it just makes them think, ooh, what did I do wrong? So it's never your fault. Does that make sense? So ultimately the trick is, sooner or later, the fingertips will touch. It's physical. So, and oddly enough, that's called in the written notes that's in the download part. That's called the fingers closer together test. Just freeze of finding it. So another example of what they call a suggestibility exercise. Once again, lots of them start out the same way. Hands out in front of you like so. Okay, interlock your fingers. The fingers of the left hand are against the back of the right hand. The fingers of the right hand against the back of the left hand. Thumbs down on top. But in fact, what you're going to do is you're going to push your hands away from you like so. And then push them above your head like that and stare directly up at the back of your hands. Stare directly up at the back of your hands. I'm going to count from 3 to 1. On the count of 1, if you concentrate, as I'm sure you will, you'll find that you'll be able to prove to yourself that you've done it correctly and that your hands will be stuck fast tight together until I clap my hands like that. Then they'll spring apart. But until then, on the count of 3, pushing them high towards the sky, high towards the rainbow, as though you're reaching to make your dreams come true. On 3, it's almost as if every nerve, fibre, tissue and muscle from your wrist to your elbows to your shoulders is stuck fast tight, almost as if the fingers of the left hand are locked, glued, welded, cemented, bolted to the back of the right hand. The fingers of the right hand locked, glued, welded, cemented, bolted to the back of the left hand. As on 2, it's almost as if you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration so effectively reaching high towards the sky, towards the rainbow, it's almost as if the world's strongest superglue is now gluing your fingers to the backs of your hands. And on 1, just prove to yourself you've done this correctly. Keep reaching high towards the sky, towards the rainbow, reaching to make your dreams come true. And if you keep reaching high towards the sky, towards the rainbow, just try and separate your hands. Prove to yourself you've done it right. Keep reaching up high towards the sky, towards the rainbow. The more you try, the more they stick. The more you try, the more they stick. Until I clap my hands, and then they will separate. Right? Now you can separate your hands. That's it. And then you say to them, give yourselves a round of applause. Which is apparently making them feel good. It's good for their ego, but it also sounds, as a performer on stage, the more you hear the audience applaud, the better it is for your ego. So take every opportunity you can to get that applaud. It does give you a bit, but nobody does. It also gives you a bit more confidence that you're getting them to be reactive. The simple fact is, you put your hands in that position, push together, away from you, and then up in the air. As long as you push upwards, keep pushing, as I say, towards the sky, towards the rainbow, it is pretty much physically impossible to separate your hands. Unless you've got a physical injury reason why, or unless you're incredibly sweaty, that the hands suddenly slide apart. Vast majority of occasions, it's physically impossible because the position you're in makes the tendons at the back of the side of the arms are under tension, and your fingers are pushing against the back of your hand, so that they're acting. Go into the position, you can feel it for yourself. You know what it felt like. That wasn't what I was saying, other than one thing. It had nothing to do with saying it's almost as though they're glued together. But we frame it that way so that people can come to believe that when we say things as a hypnotist and they imagine them, that it becomes their reality. And the moment they believe that, then they stop analysing it, the critical faculty closes down, and arguably they're hypnotised. So we're using tricks, if you like. Equally, it'll work if you get them to push the hands away from them. I just prefer it up in the air because I like that sentence. Just prove to yourself you've done it right. Same psychology we've already explained, very much Dave Almanified. Just try to separate your hands, Emile Coux's law of reversed effort. Prove to yourself you've done it right. And keep reaching high towards the sky, towards the rainbow, as though you're reaching for your dreams to come true. Generally speaking, most people would like the idea of the dreams coming true. It's a concept that they'll reach for. But it's a nice kind of way of making sure that they keep pushing upwards. Because that's the key to it. As long as they keep pushing upwards, when they try to pull them apart, they won't be able to because of the physical position that the hand's in. But they'll come to believe it was because of your words. And then when you say your hands will separate when I clap them, well, the fact is it just distracts them mentally from the focus. And ultimately, they end up lowering the hands slightly or leaning them forward or whatever. So of course they'll come apart because they're no longer in that physical position. It makes sense, yeah? So yeah, hopefully you're starting to see why I term this as all being bullshit, because it's just tricks that lead people down a garden path, so they come to a point where they stop questioning it consciously and come to believe that you say things to them and that they end up doing it, which arguably the moment they believe that is hypnosis. So as much as on the one hand I'm saying it's bollocks and shite and it's all tricks, it is But if you believe in all that concept that hypnosis exists, then the way it's explained by the majority of people, arguably, that is what's going on. So even if they're right and I'm wrong, worst case scenario is what I'm showing you gets you to that same end point, just in a more assured way, because you know that as long as they actually, and if they pull their hands apart, you know they haven't done what you told them to do. And if they haven't done what you've told them to do, then you don't want them as volunteers on stage for a stage show because they're not going to be compliant. And for therapy, they're clearly not taking it seriously enough at that point, so you need to drum it into them. Look, for this to work, you've really got to concentrate. Let's do a different test. Because it's all about the onus being on them. And when you realise that, you can have confidence because you cannot fail. That's the biggest message I want you to get out of all of this. It's about not failing. So that's fingers close together. That's called the guaranteed locked hands, oddly enough, because it's guaranteed and it's locking the hands together. Loads of thought went into the names of these. Yeah. This is more of a one for use for therapy because it's better, more reliable to do one-to-one. You can do this on an entire audience. I have in the past done it on an entire audience. The problem is you've got to try and keep your eye on bloody everybody, and you know it's more difficult. You've got more control when you've just got one person. So I'll tell you that much in advance. But for the purposes of this, I am going to do it on you all so you can feel it, because it'll take forever if I do you all individually. So what I'd like you all to do is just close down your eyes. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose, and then out through your mouth. And you should continue breathing deeply and regularly in through your nose and then out through your mouth. It's just a sign and a signal to help you relax more rapidly every nerve, fibre, tissue and muscle in your body, from the tips of your toes to the tips of your fingers, especially all the little muscles around your eyelids. Because in a moment I'm going to count backwards from 3 down to 1. And on the count of 1, if you concentrate, as I'm sure you will, and use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, then you'll find that on the count of 1, when and only when I ask you to try, then when you try, you'll find you're unable to open your eyes until I clap my hands. It'll be almost as if on the count of 3, someone has glued your eyelids together. So they're locked, glued, welded, cemented, bolted in place in a calm, safe and secure manner. As on 2, with every breath you take, every noise you hear, every word I say and every thought you think, it's almost as if right now you can imagine that in your mind's eye you can see a kind of control room inside your mind, inside your body, and you can walk into this control room inside your mind, and it'll be different for everyone, but you might see buttons or levers or switches or sliders. Different for everyone, whatever feels right for you. See those controls, buttons, switches, sliders, whatever they may be, and in your mind's eye find the one that is labelled eyelids. And go up in your mind's eye and imagine it's almost as if you can flick that switch, or you can turn down that slider, or you can press the button, whatever it may be that's right for you. So you can turn off all the energy, all the power to all those little muscle groups around the eyelids. And when you know you've done that correctly on the count of 1, just prove to yourself you've done it correctly. Prove to yourself you've turned the power off completely, and prove to yourself you've done it right, and just try to open your eyes, and you'll find that the more you try, the more your eyelids will be stuck, because you've turned off all that power effectively and you've used your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration so wonderfully. That's fantastic. But when I clap my hands, you'll feel completely normal and your eyes will just open right now. You can open your eyes, you can open your eyes. Each and every one of you. It looks like this when you're trying to open them, because you can't. But you could have done. You always have the choice to, but if you're going to prove to yourself that you've done it right, the only way to prove to yourself you've done it right is to not open your eyes. And also, the brain doesn't process negatives in the same way. Try implying they won't be able to. The most important bit, it's based on Dave Alman's work, is suggesting to them they've got a control room in the mind's eye and they turn off the power. The thing I didn't do there, because it was a group, but I'll show you now if I could just borrow your set. Thank you. If it's one-to-one, to make it even more reliable, what I would do, it's just I can't walk around an entire audience and touch them all physically. Well, you could, if it's a small group, but I'll get them to close their eyes. I'd go through the same nonsense about 3 down to 1, and at number 2 would be the same. palaver about the control room and turning off the little muscle groups, turning off the power and the energy. But then I would also say, in a moment I'm going to tap you on the head. When I do, it will not bother you, worry you or concern you. If you're ever going to touch somebody, whether it's on stage or in therapy, warn them in advance you're going to do it, so it doesn't come as a shock to them, and tell them where they're going to get touched, so that, again, you built up that trust, you haven't betrayed their trust. So in a moment, I'm going to touch you on the head. When I do, it will not bother you, worry you or concern you. Just serve as a sign and a signal for you to be able to use your powers of mind even more effectively to lock, glue, weld, cement your eyelids together. And then I'd say to him, okay, what I'd like you to do is imagine now that where my fingers are, as you keep your eyes closed, there's kind of a pyramid going up to this point here. That little point, it's almost as if there's a little hole in your head. And where that little hole in your head is, there's a white bright light. And as you stare at that white bright light with your eyeballs, you can just find that your eyelids become even more stuck fast, tight, locked, glued, welded, cemented together. And on one, you say the same thing. Try, prove to yourself you've done it right. So all those elements come into play. But also, just try, keep staring at that point, but the more you try, the more... Forget all the stuff about the power, it doesn't really matter about that, but just so long as you keep staring at that fingertip point there where the white bright light is, just try and open your eyes. The more you try, the more they stick, the more you try. When I take my finger away, your eyes just open. Excellent. If you can touch them, that makes it even more effective, because the fact is, I'm effectively just going in a triangle from the corner of their eyes to roughly the top central area of the forehead, and saying, I'm wiggling my finger as I say, it's almost as if there's a white bright light. Stare up at it. If they stare upwards with their eyeballs, if their eyeballs are staring upwards, it becomes physically impossible to open the eyelids. To open your eylids, your eyeballs have to come down and forward. When they're upwards, which they must be if they're staring at this point, they will not be able to open their eyelids. But they'll come to the conclusion it's could you suggested things and said things to them. So once again they think, hypnotist says things, I genuinely experienced it as reality, which means the next thing the hypnotist says to me, I'm going to experience as reality. Which if that is that they're not going to be scared of spiders anymore and they believe in that enough, then that will be their reality. Or if it's on stage, that in a moment when they wake up, they'll believe that when this next piece of music plays, they become the living reincarnation of Elvis Presley. They will, when they open their eyes, see the inflatable guitar that you put next to their legs. And guess what? For them to stand up and be Elvis Presley, they've got to pick the guitar up to move it. It's automatically in their hands. You don't need to have said you'll play the guitar. They'll take it, and it looks spontaneous when they start doing this. Well, of course they're going to do. Jailhouse Rock's playing with a guitar. They've woken up. It's right against the legs. They've got to pick it up to stand up. But to the audience, it appears even funnier because they appear to have done something spontaneously that you didn't say, but you've just set it up so that it's going to happen. What did that feel like?
Because you're looking,
Yeah.
you can't pull your eyes back down.
Exactly. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. While you're up here, look, would it be okay if you just stand up a moment? Excellent. That breaks all my rules, because really I should have said just stand up. Come on, bring it. But I'm being nice because it's a seminar, not a show. Okay, what I'd like to do is face that way, feet together. Excellent. Put your right arm out in front of you like this. Oh, sorry. We'll do it with your face in the audience. I can explain it afterwards myself, stood sideways. Make a fist with your right hand. That's brilliant. Now put your thumb up in the air. Stare directly at your thumb. What I'd like you to do is this. I'm going to count from 3 to 1. On the count of 1, and that very moment I get to the count of 1, I want you to move your thumb in a clockwise direction and follow it with your eyes, okay? And you're going to rotate at the waist, but keep your feet together, okay? And you're going to go as far as you can until it becomes uncomfortable. This is not about showing off what a super muscle man you are. I don't want you to physically injure or hurt yourself. So the moment it becomes the least bit uncomfortable, just stop at that position. So 3, 2, 1. Move your thumb with your eyes, follow, and stop when it becomes a bit. So we look past the roughly where about, is that about right? So about here, you're seeing in the background, yeah? Okay, excellent. Remember that. Follow your thumb back with your eyes. Now just close your eyes down. Take a nice deep breath in through your nose, then out through your mouth. And imagine in your mind's eye doing that again, only this time when I get to the count of 1. You're still keeping your feet together, you're still rotating at the waist, you're still going in a clockwise direction, but as you move your thumb and follow with your eyes, you notice that you can see Martin in the audience. then you can see the window and a plant, and you can see another window, the wall. And you can see that point that you got to in the past, yeah? That's what your reality was. Now in your mind's eye, imagine that something you once thought may have been difficult to achieve in life is just about to prove itself to be so ridiculously easy, and that there's no longer any limitations or blocks where they once were in the past. And when in your mind's eye you've seen your new reality, being able to move forward in a calm, safe, secure manner in your mind's eye, amazing yourself at how well you're able to do that, just tell me if you've seen that in your mind's eye. Yeah? Excellent. In which case, open your eyes, look at your thumb. 3, 2, 1. Move your thumb, follow with your eyes. You can just go further and further. And yeah, indeed. That's much further, isn't it? Yeah? Give them a round of applause. That's visually, there is no argument. Everyone can see, if you've got an audience, that they've gone further. So it does act as an applause cue to an audience. The person you're doing it on, both visually sees with their own eyes confirmation that they've gone further, and oh god, we're getting dangerously close to NLP, visual, auditory, kinesthetic here, and also feel the fact that they've gone further and that it felt freer and looser than the first time they did it. Well, of course it will feel freer and looser than the first time they did it, because the first time it's warmed the muscles up a bit. That's part 1 of it. Part 2 of it is that the first time, and hopefully this flew by you, but the first time I say to them, on the count of 1, keeping your feet together, rotating at the waist, follow your thumb with your head and your eyes, and stop the moment it becomes the least bit uncomfortable. Follow your thumb with your head and your eyes. Watch. I'm telling you now, I can't go any further than that, and there's a reason. My neck won't turn any further, because I'm not an owl. So that's as far as I'm going to get, following it with my head and my eyes. We go through the close your eyes bit that the hypnotist is supposed to do, have them visualise it, so they get this idea that they visualise themselves going further, and therapeutically you may have spotted there were metaphors in there that were once holding you back in the past, has now gone completely, embedded commands, and seeing your mind's eye the fact you're able to move forward more easily, and something you once thought in the past may have been difficult to achieve, has just proved itself to be so ridiculously easy. So we've got your metaphors in there. I do use this in therapy as well. I did tell you that this stuff would eventually link into therapy as well as stage. But the second time, all right, you might argue that A, the muscles have warmed up, but unfortunately, I promise you, even though the muscles are warmed up, I can't go any further than that because I'm not an owl. But the second time, I didn't say follow your thumb with your head and your eyes. I just said follow your thumb with your eyes. So, guess what? I'm still looking at my thumb, but my head's in the same position as it was last time. Nobody ever twigs it. They just become consciously aware of the fact, my thumb's gone further, I could see further on the wall, and everyone's like, what the fuck's just happened? That's like a miracle. I do that in pubs regularly when people put me on the spot and say, hypnotise me. I go, look, really, I haven't got time, and to be honest, you know, I've been drinking, so health and safety wise, I'm not going to hypnotise you. What I'll do, though, is show you the power of your own mind. How's about that? And then, try not to say it's bad, that. How's about, well then, Jim, not good in this day and age. But I'll do that because I know that without fail, as long as the person, and I do ask them, generally as a rule, you know, have you got a bad hips or anything like that? You know, if someone's on crutches, you're not going to get them to do this. It's common, please apply common sense as well. But assuming they look fit, healthy and well and they can stand up unaided, it works every time as long as you get the wording right, because they don't realise you've told them to do something entirely different the second time. First time, follow your thumb with your eyes and your head. Second time, follow your thumb with your eyes and go on, you can do it, you can do it. It's like you're encouraging them. Of course they can flipping do it because they're only following it with their eyes. I love that. It's the eyes follow the thumb test. I call that in the written notes. Well, to make things easy. These are what we call suggestion tests. So, the reason I've got a list to prompt my mind is because the real truth is, in the real world, Well, I've used all of these at some point during my career. The truth is, now, today, as it were, whether I'm doing a stage show, therapy, group, or anything, the only suggestibility test I ever use are the finger magnets for stage and the guaranteed locked hands. And for therapy, I use the Alman, as I call it, Alman combined guaranteed eye lock, because you've got the Alman bit of turning off the power, but you've also got the guaranteed, the staring at your fingertip in therapy one-to-one. And I use the eyes follow thumb in therapy because of being able to embed those metaphors in at the start of the session. It acts as a massive convincer that, wow, because at the end of it I'll go, wow, that's brilliant, that tells me you've used your powers of mind so effectively that the work we're about to do is going to work massively well for you. And imagine, if as quickly as that you've been able to alter your reality, imagine what we can do in the next 60 minutes. And it seems logical that if I manage to do this miraculous thing that quick, what can I do in 60 minutes? So it's putting them in the right frame of mind. But they're the only ones I use. Very rarely I'll do a drop back, which we'll cover later. But that would only tend to be if a TV company was filming me, just because it looks visually more dramatic. Inductions wise for therapy, I just bore the fuckers to death. Or as some people like to call it, progressive relaxation induction. Now, the reasoning behind that is because done right, progressive relaxation induction can take a nice good 15 minutes. So it kills some of the time. So it seems important. The other thing is, it's relaxing when you get them to tense up muscle parts of the body and then relax them. Because even if they're not more relaxed, it feels like they are because they become consciously aware of the tension they've just put into the muscle group by tensing it. So that when they let it go, they're more consciously aware of it not being tense, if that makes sense. So psychologically, it's perceived as being that they're more relaxed, which acts as a non-verbal suggestion, arguably. It genuinely is relaxing, and if you read a book called The Relaxation Response, name of the author I can't remember right now, but if you put in The Relaxation Response in Amazon, it'll be the first one that comes up top of the list. You'll get it second hand for about £2.50. It goes into there about, basically, physically relaxing helps the body to naturally heal itself. It helps people, people have interrupted sleep or whatever. In therapy, and I'm not going to dwell on this too much because it's about inductions and whatnot, but in therapy my goal is to get them snoring. So they've gone to kit. I would make sure the room's dead warm, that the lights are dimmed, that there's like aromatherapy oils that promote relaxation going, there's the winky wanky arty farty boring new agey music going, and so it basically promotes them to go to sleep. And then when they're snoring, I can just go on the internet and do something and wake them up at the end of the session. I'm not joking. At the end of the day, if the client believes something's magical's taken place, then it has. And if at the end of the session you have to wake them like that, come on, back in the room, clap your hands, and they've gone to genuine sleep, and they wake up, you're never going to have that experience of the person going, that didn't feel like what I thought hypnosis was, because you know what they'll think it was? Sleep. The hypnotist makes them sleep. So if you can promote them going into a real sleep, so at the end you've genuinely got to wake them up, they'll feel like what they thought hypnosis is supposed to feel like, which means they've experienced the magic for real. And the moment they think they've experienced the magic for real, they have arguably experienced the magic. And when they convince themselves they have, then they've got the perfect excuse and permission to remove all self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, frustration, anger, resentment, whatever, and leave there and get on with their life and do what they could have always done for themselves if it wasn't for the fear of what people might say to them, as we discussed earlier in the day, if that makes sense. And it really is as simple as that. Don't get me wrong, we cover a lot more than that in the therapy courses that I do, but generally speaking, that is pretty much why I use that in therapy. And stage, I will teach you a bit later, the main induction I use, because ever since I had it done on me, and I still say that hypnosis doesn't exist, but it's the closest I've ever felt to personally feeling like something that I could turn around in my head and go, that felt weird. And therefore, in my head I could go, you know what, because it felt a bit weird to me, imagine it being done on somebody who doesn't know the tricks behind it, how much weirder it's going to feel to them, so that their only logical conclusion is that weirdness must be the experience of becoming hypnotised. And arguably the moment they believe they are becoming hypnotised, they are. So I use a thing called the seesaw induction, which I might be close to showing you that now actually. Right. Eyes follow thumb, we've done that. Fingers closing, we've done that. Yeah, so the only other suggestibility test is the light and heavy hands, or as it gets called in some books, the buck and balloons, or the bucket of sand and balloons. Basically, it's a light object and a heavy object. I do it slightly differently than a lot of the books explain, just because I like things to work more of the time. Why make things difficult for yourself? In a lot of the books, they'll tell you, have them both their arms out like that. And imagine there's books on one and tied to the fingers of the other are helium balloons. Or they'll tell you, and this one really I don't get, they'll tell you to put the hands out like that and tell them that there's books on the back of this hand and there's balloons. Some of the descriptions I've seen are fucking ridiculous. The way to remember this, right hand, letter R, left hand, letter L. So right arm, I'm telling you this before I even do it on you. Right hand, letter R, is the right hand, where we're going to put red, letter R, helium balloons that are going to rise into the air, letter R. Left hand, on the palm, because that's the way you'd hold balloons, oh sorry, the right hand, if you were holding a bunch of balloons, you'd hold them like that, more than likely. So, arguably, if the wind came to blow them away, you'd kind of pull them down like that, wouldn't you? So more of the back of your hand would be visible. And that's the memory aid that you're going to have them put the right arm out so the palm is downwards. The left hand, letter L, is where the leather-bound, letter L, library books, letter L, are going to go, well, how would you hold them on the palm of your hand? That's going to make that hand go lower, letter L. Now the simple fact is, well, I'll do it on you. Place your arms out in front of you like so that your right arm is outstretched with the palm towards the floor, and your left arm is outstretched with the palm upwards, roughly at the same level. Then just close your eyes down so you can imagine more clearly in your mind's eye. I'm going to count backwards from 3 down to 1. On the count of 1, well, you'll see what happens. It's all down to how well you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration over the next few moments. Because I'd like you to imagine that on the palm of your left hand is a big pile of leather-bound library books that's getting heavier and heavier and heavier with every second that passes by, with every breath that you take, every noise that you hear, every word that I say and every thought that you think. Is on the count of 3, as you imagine that pile of leather-bound library books pushing your left hand down to the floor, almost as though there's a magnet in the floor drawing your hand down with those books. You also realise now that tied to the middle finger of your right hand is a big bunch of bright red helium balloons that are lighter than air as your right hand starts to rise up into the air. And as your right arm starts to rise into the air with those balloons, so in turn the leather-bound library books get heavier and heavier on the count of 2. Almost as if someone has put another 10 books onto that pile, so that the left hand sinks down further towards the floor with each second that passes by. With those helium balloons, another dozen balloons are attached to the middle of the right hand that starts to rise up into the air. And on 1, just open your eyes. For the purpose of this, open your eyes, look at your hands. Oh look, gaps, gaps. Wonderful. That tells me that you've used your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively. What it tells them, because you've told them that that's what it means, is that, oh yeah, there's a gap between your hands. Oh. So I imagine leather-bound library books and my hand physically goes down. I imagine red balloons, my arm goes up. That's the conclusion they come to in a matter of split seconds. The truth is, very rarely does the right arm go up. If it does, it tends to be more in a stage show than it would than in therapy, and it is, figuratively speaking, that attention-seeking footplate going, "Pick me, sir, pick me," by putting their arm in the air. And as long as they keep their eyes closed and a straight face, so they're not trying to make you look daft at that stage, I generally would take that as an indication that person's going to be fairly good subject. Therapy, less likely to happen because they've only got you to impress. In a group, people are aware there's other people there. But in truth, generally speaking, the right arm doesn't tend to go very far at all, although it looks to the person as though it has done. What's really happened is the left arm, which is in the different position than the right, in this position you can keep that arm there for ages and it won't feel strained. Put your arm outstretched like that and the tendons here start to pull and you start to feel after a period of time tension and it starts to tire and frankly hurt a bit. Well, you're waffling on for a while, you're just waiting to see them lower their arm. And the reason they're going to lower it is because as they start lowering it slightly, you feel a sense of physical relief because you're releasing the tension on the tendons. Does that make sense? And then when you keep waffling on, if it's one-to-one, until you've got a reasonable bit of a gap, you can tell them to open their eyes, and they see evidence, tangible evidence with their own eyes, that you've suggested something to them, they've imagined it, and it's become reality for them. And once again, the more times we can say something, they imagine it, and then they genuinely get evidence that proves to them tangibly that it's become reality, they'll reach a point where they stop resisting, the critical faculties close down, and they'll just unquestionably do what you say, because rationally, what's the point in arguing? Because they'll believe they're hypnotised. So before you even do an induction, you could argue you've done the induction. Because you're not starting from scratch. They've either come to your consulting room and they've seen diplomas on the wall, the bookshelf with the books, they've seen your website, they've seen testimonials, they partied with money, and then you go through something like the magnetic fingers or the eye lock, and then the eyes following the thumb, before you even get to doing the therapy. They're convinced. Stage show, they bought a ticket, or they've come along, they've seen the poster. You know, there's other people there, that's social proof, you must be good. You walk out on stage confident, you've got the recorded voiceover. All these things are creating the right perception and credibility for them to believe and trust in you that you can do what you've claimed. And once they believe you can, then you can, because hypnosis exists only in the mind of the believer. So yeah, with that, what they call the light and heavy hands test, ultimately it's just this arm gets tired. Although in a stage show environment, sometimes some people will go, if they literally start doing this and you go, your right arm's rising into the air, and they go, I instantly think, dickhead. Because they've reacted too quick, and that's the kind of person you don't want on stage, because although they might do what you say, they're going to likely do it too quick, and then it looks set up, and it looks fake. But if, you know, you say your right arm's rising into the air, and they're kind of at a steady speed, end up in the pick me please sir, it's a fairly safe indicator that they're going to be a good subject. Which arguably, and again this can apply to groups or one-to-one, but I don't like, frankly I just don't like taking risks. I like things to work the vast majority of the time. Hence, if they're stood in the right position, they're not going to be able to lift the foot. If they're pushing upright, they're not going to be able to separate their hands. If I waffle on long enough, sooner or later their fingertips are going to close. Sooner or later their arm is going to get tired. As long as they follow the instructions, nothing can happen except them going further, because now they're just looking with their eyes. It's all stacked in my favour. But even if it didn't go to plan, it's their fault, because they've not proven to themselves they've done it right, and they've not used the powers of mind right. So you can't fail, you can have confidence. That said, years ago when I started out, and mainly because it's what all other hypnotists were doing, NLP says modelled. Modelled, fuck off, you mean copied. But the other stage hypnotists that I'd modelled, all of them came out at that time and they said to everyone, put your hands out in front of you, interlock your fingers. Fingers of the right hand against the back of the left hand. Fingers of the left hand against the back of the right hand. Palms pressed tightly together, thumbs down on top. Squeeze your hands together just as tightly as you can and stare directly at your knuckles. And then they would count backwards. Well, they wouldn't actually. They'd count probably upwards. I'm going to count from 1 to 20. Which I never saw the fucking point of. Because I always remind myself of this. Whenever I'm doing a suggestibility test or an induction, or giving a therapeutic command of when something's going to happen that they're going to imagine, it doesn't matter whether it's 20 down to 1, 10 down to 1, 5 down to 1, 3 down to 1, but I always have the numbers go backwards, so the numbers are going down. Because when you go to sleep at night, if you think of putting the baby down to sleep, it just, to me, it makes more sense that numbers should go down, and your voice tone should get lower as you're 10, 9. The deeper you go, the better you feel. The so-called winky-wanky hypnotic voice, but they expect to hear it because it's what's in the films. So if you do it, you're fulfilling their expectations, and it's more likely to work. And when you're waking them up, then the numbers should go up. I'm going to count from 1 to 10. On the 10, because you wake up in the morning. The truth is, it doesn't actually make any difference. You've got to see stage hypnotists, you'll see loads of them doing it the other way around. Personally, for me, though, it just makes more logical sense that all inductions, so-called deepeners, set pieces, suggestibility tests, the numbers are counted backwards, and the voice tone gets slightly lower or drawn out, and the awakenings are more upbeat because you're waking up in the morning, and the numbers go upwards. It just seems to make more sense to me that way, but whatever suits you. I do think arguably that it's got an inbuilt suggestion in it as well, doing it that way. So yeah, they used to get them to squeeze their hands together like that, and they'd waffle on for a good 5 minutes about the perspiration now forming on the palms of your hands is turning into the world's strongest superglue. It's almost as though your hands are locked in a vice and someone's doing up the knot tighter and tighter with every second that passes by. Waffle, 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 10, 9, 8, whatever. And on 5, it's almost as if, always it's almost as if, whatever experience they have then is right for them, and it's not a case of them questioning it and going, well, that isn't what's been said to me. So it's almost as if you imagine your hands have now been encased in a block of concrete, making it impossible to separate your hands. And so you waffle on for a while, and you're telling them all the time to squeeze the hands together and so forth. Basically, if you squeeze your hands together like that for, say, 3, 4, 5 minutes, when you then try and separate them, as long as you've been squeezing them, well, firstly, your hands will be tired. Secondly, when you go to try and separate them, more often than not, your knuckles will knock together. And when they knock, because of the context we've said it in, and is being presented, they tend to take that as a sign of, shit, I can't get my hands apart, so they stop trying. Now, if they've got their hands together like this, and this is why stage hypnotists, I believe, used to use it, if they've got their hands together like this, we will very often then say to them, look, as your hands continue getting tighter and tighter, some of you may find they begin to shake slightly like this. Don't worry, you know, you won't go blind and it doesn't last forever. And make a bit of a gag of it, because then we're arguably looking for people who are genuinely suggestible, because if they start shaking their hands, if they start doing this, we're back to dickhead syndrome. But if they start off like this and then it gets a bit more, we've got a suggestible, ideal person to pick on. I just didn't, frankly, find that as reliable as guaranteeing locked hands. But you might want to give it a go. Effectively, he's just waffling on to give them a period of time for the hands to get tired so that hopefully they'll knock together or not even try. So, the light and heavy hands, which we just covered, very conveniently leads in to, just because you're at the front, and no, in fact, I'll borrow you, Martin. Give me a round of peer group pressure. So the light and heavy hands, conventionally, you get them to open their eyes so they can see the gap. And the idea is the gap acts to them as that suggestion or proof that you say things, they imagine it, it becomes their genuine, tangible reality. And it's very powerful for that. Now, the key thing with most hypnotic inductions is that the person knows you're about to do a hypnotic induction on them. Which is why resistance could be brought up, if they so chose, because they know something's about to happen. Now, in therapy, that shouldn't happen because they're investing money. In a stage where if they've volunteered, genuinely volunteered, rather than being coerced into it by the mates on a stag party, but if they've genuinely volunteered themselves to get their 5 minutes of fame, it's the X Factor karaoke syndrome, you know, the karaoke singer knows he's crap, but he still gets up. He's got his 5 minutes of fame. generally speaking, you won't get resistance anyway. Now, arguably, you have to legally have their consent to hypnotise them. I would argue that when they step foot on stage, they have volunteered to take part in the show, so you have got that consent because they know they're not at a Barry White tribute night. They know what they've come to. And definitely in therapy, by virtue of being there and having paid and booked, arguably you've already got their consent, otherwise why the chuffing hell have they come? So, I'm saying that now because with this, the way it's done, they don't